How soon after did you kill your dad?
What do you mean how soon after?
Well, after your mum?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He came running, and then that's when it happened.
Okay, what did he say when he came in?
Well, he was scared for her.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, and then it was quicker with him.
Okay. Now, you talked about a stick.
Yeah.
Who did you use the stick on?
I think it was both.
On both? And what part of the bodies did you hit them with?
I think it was the head.
You did what?
Well, I tried to strangle her with a cord, a ripped cord from a video game console controller. That didn't work, huh?
What was you trying to strangle her?
She was sitting on the couch watching TV.
Okay.
That didn't work out too well. She started screaming, and so I went to her room, opened a drawer at the very bottom to the right. I pulled out a hammer.
Greetings, I'm Archbishop Amon, and I appreciate the opportunity to share some thoughts with you at this time. As Catholics, we are called to be that voice for all life. This dignity is not reserved for the unborn and the innocent. In particular, we are called to stand against the death penalty in this country.
And there were 2 knives involved?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, where did you get the knives?
The kitchen.
Which knife did you use on which person?
I don't remember.
You don't remember? Okay.
But I think I remember this. There was a smaller one that was only used on my mom.
Oh.
How many times did you with her in the living room?
At least 20, but then she was still alive. I dragged her into the room, as you probably clearly saw, and then I kind of wormed my hands into her brains to kind of just cut it. She was still snoring.
Okay, so she was still alive?
She was still alive. Actually.
And you went in there and you kind of grabbed those brains?
Yeah, finished it.
Pope Francis approved the update to the Catechism of the Catholic Church, the Church's book of official teachings. He's declared the death penalty unacceptable in any case. Father Mann of Co-Cathedral of St. John, the evangelist in Rochester, tells KIMT he is pleased with this change and thinks it will align well with core Catholic beliefs.
Because it's very difficult for me to imagine that we can just decide that this person is so violent, this person has no humanity.
And what caused you to just do this?
Like it was, I guess, the spur of the moment.
How did you do it?
1 or 2 knives and a stick.
And where did you kill them?
In our kitchen. I dragged my mom in a tarp.
Okay.
And then I put my dad in a suitcase.
Look at the death penalty, for instance, right? Like, I don't know if Francis is right about that. I mean, killing people.
Don't make the spanking analogy because it's not good.
No, I will. Killing people to tell people that it's wrong to kill people is not. That's just
not why
logic.
we're killing them necessarily.
Yeah, that's
we
the
don't
threat.
kill people. No, yeah, but it's also the argument has always been throughout church history that the state has legitimate power to execute criminals.
Sure, but that
good of the whole.
Right, but that doesn't make me as a Christian less Christian because I say I don't think we should kill that guy.
No, but it might. Right, no, it doesn't. But if you
were
to say that capital punishment is intrinsically wrong and can never be used in a way that's good, that would put you at odds with Christian tradition and the Bible. Like Thomas Aquinas makes this very clear. The Council of Trent makes this very clear.
Right. So
the Catechism up until 20 minutes ago.
Yeah. So you could make the same argument with the just war, right?
No, because just war can be waged justly, just like the Church has argued that executions can be performed justly.
Right. If there's no way to contain the person, that he won't do more harm.
Yeah, that's not the only reason the Church has the Church has also said it can be used as a penalty.
To kill.
Yeah.
To murder.
Yes.
That's just
Well, it depends how you define murder, but definitely kill. And if you want to say no, then when God says, if a man sheds blood, by his blood be, let it be shed, then your argument is with God at that point.
I'm not less Christian. And I'm not saying I'm more Christian.
Mm-hmm.
That I don't want people to be killed.
And then what did you do after that?
Then I had sex with her corpse.
You did? Okay. Did you come inside her?
I did, actually.
Have you ever done that before, like had sex with her?
No, I haven't, actually.
This is just the first time?
Oh, yeah, I lost my virginity to a corpse.
Just because somebody is autistic or has some kind of learning disorder does not mean that they do not have a proclivity to evil or a capacity for evil. Case in point, Cameron Rogers. Cameron Rogers is a Canadian who murdered his parents in 2016. He was adopted, and for some sick, twisted, evil reason, for some sadistic, diabolical motive, he decided to take out a knife and stab his parents to death. He first stabbed his mother. His father was not home. He took out a knife. His mother was in the kitchen just chopping something up. She was chopping up herbs, according to him, and he was in the kitchen, I believe, cutting up a melon. And he took out a knife and stabbed his mother. She was in excruciating pain, and according to him, and this is what he said while he was being interrogated, it took all night for his mother to die. She was in excruciating pain, and as she was suffering, he was sitting in his room. His father was not at home at that moment. And his mother's brother called up the house, and he was wondering how his sister was doing. And Cameron Rogers simply told his mother's brother, she has the flu, and she's just resting. His father came home only to see his wife bleeding out and suffering tremendously. And his father, of course, was in shock and in consternation and in terror. And there was Cameron Rogers. And Cameron Rogers took out a bigger knife and stabbed his father to death. I watched most of Cameron Rogers' interrogation. And, of course, they bring in this interrogator who is just the nicest lady ever. She's so nice. She's so nice. And, of course, this is a way that interrogators get information out of you, right? They have to be super nice to the person, just soothe the person's ego, make this, and even though he's this, monster, murderer, a person who has absolutely no remorse, they have to just soothe the person's ego, soothe the monster's ego, just stroke his ego just to get all that information out of him. Oh, yes, of course. Yes, that's so understandable. Understandable, yes. Oh, absolutely. Right, of course. Of course you would be angry. Of course, yes. Just keep giving us information, yes. And this is how interrogators work. This is how they get information from the suspect so that they can prove that the suspect is guilty. And Cameron Rogers was sitting there in his cell talking to the interrogator and acting as though he was remorseful, acting as though he felt really bad. And he talked about how after he stabbed his mother, he felt really bad. I felt really bad. And he has a speech impediment, you see. So I watched most of the interrogation, and I started reading the comments because the YouTube comment sections are just beacons of logic and reason and morality. It's actually a huge cesspool of people who will justify any sort of evil or who will express sympathy for the wickedest of the wicked. This is the YouTube comment section. It's extremely toxic and it's a terrible, terrible place for the most part. I started reading the comments, and I found these comments that were just so obnoxious. Oh, even though he was, is a murderer, I just feel bad for him. I just feel so bad for the guy, because I understand he's mentally ill. I understand. I work with people. With mental health issues, and I can totally empathize with this person, because I work with mental health patients, and I feel so bad for him. I can tell that he's just remorseful. I can tell he was just not in control when he did what he did. And I'm sitting there, I'm just like, what a bunch of freaking doofuses. What a bunch of idiots. What a bunch of just morons who say things that are not in line with reality. Because when I was listening to this guy talk, this murderer talk, I was just picking all of the contradictions in his narrative. I was detecting the contradictions. So, for example, he said, oh, I felt really bad. And he has a speech impediment. And the only reason why people feel sorry for him is because he's got this speech impediment. So it makes him sound like he's a kid with special needs. You find him in the special education classroom, and you think, oh, he's just a poor boy with a learning disability and blah, blah, blah. Well, for one thing, yeah, they say that this guy is autistic. But he was studying to become an engineer for robotics, I believe. So this guy is not retarded. His brain is fully functional. He can study very complex things that most people have no interest in studying. This person knew exactly what he was doing. His brain is functional. It functions just fine. Yes, he has a speech impediment, but that does not impede his brain from conniving all sorts of evil things. And that's what this guy did. He planned to murder his parents. He carried out the act, and then he tried to escape. He had a plan of escape. And so as I was listening to his interrogation, of course, most of the morons on YouTube are like, oh, he's a speech impediment. He must have mental health problems. He really wasn't in control, blah, 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 blah. I'm listening to this guy, and I'm finding all the contradictions. So, for example, he says, I feel so remorseful. I feel so bad. I feel so bad. I feel so bad. And for one thing, in America, you find a lot of stories of people who talk like that and act that way. They'll say, oh, this person was born with bipolar or whatever, and you'll see him in the camera. And I'm sitting there, and I'm just like, okay. Listen, I went through the public education system in California, and I've seen all sorts of sick things. This does not faze me, and nor do I sympathize with someone who has committed such a heinous act just because he acts like something that you would see on morning television or the Oprah Winfrey show. And this guy says, I felt so bad. And then the interrogator asks him, okay, you felt really bad. Where was your mother at the time? She was in the room. And what was going on? She was suffering. She was in pain. I stabbed her. She was in the room, and she was in pain. Okay. And how long did it take for her to die? It took all night for her to die.
How long did it take?
What do you mean?
Like before your mom, how long did you...
Well, my dad didn't take very long, but my mom took a long time. And it was really hard because she was in pain, and I wanted it to stop, and I couldn't make it stop. And I felt so bad because she was in pain, and I went for the whole night.
And what?
It took the whole night for her to die. I went to my room, and she was still in pain. I could hear her.
Why is it then, after, when you realized she was in pain, why didn't you call 911?
Well, I knew it was too late.
And what do you mean by it was too late?
The wounds were too bad.
Took all night for her to die. Okay. And why didn't you call the ambulance? And I'm sitting there, I'm like, that's exactly what I was thinking. That's exactly what I was thinking. As I was listening to him, I'm like, wait a second, you feel really remorseful, but yet your mother was laying there in excruciating pain, suffering, bleeding out for hours, and you were in your room, and yet you were remorseful, but you didn't call the ambulance? And then he said, well, the reason why I didn't call the ambulance was because she was going to die anyway. Well, wait, hold on, wait. She was sitting there for hours. You could have called the ambulance hours before she died, and they probably would have been able to save her if it took hours for her to die. And then her brother calls up. His mother's brother calls up, and he says, hey, how's my sister doing? And what do you tell your uncle? She has the flu. She's sleeping. She can't talk. Wait. So here you have a very conniving person. If you feel really bad, why are you hiding the fact that you just stabbed this man's sister? Then his father comes home, sees his wife bleeding out. He freaks out. What does this monster do? Takes out a knife and murders his father. What? I thought you were remorseful. I thought you felt bad at that moment. Why would you murder your father if you felt bad? Then he tries to escape. If you felt really remorseful, why would you try to escape? Why would you try to go to America? That's what this guy tried to do. He drove all the way to a train station, and then he tried to cross the border into America, but he couldn't because he didn't have his papers. Sometimes I think we need a big-ass wall between Canada and the U.S. because, yes, we do have Canadian criminals crossing the border into the U.S. That does happen, believe me, I know. Dandelion tea, very good. So this monster does this, and then he lies to the court. Like, oh, he's mental health issue. He has mental problems, right? He's got a learning disability, but yet he has the ability to plan out evil and plan out how he's going to get away with it. Tries to lie to the court and say that he has that his father molested him. Oh, my father molested me. That's why I just flipped out. Well, he later admitted that was a lie. He admitted that was a lie. So that was also another indication of this guy being a manipulative person, trying to gain sympathy from the court so that he could maybe get a lighter sentence. Oh, it was aggravated. It was an aggravated murder. So here is one aspect of the story. He was molested, so therefore, maybe you can't really blame him for murdering his parents. But that's not what happened. What happened was that he murdered his parents in cold blood. And there was no legitimate reason to do this. This wasn't in self-defense. It's not like his parents were trying to kill him. His parents were taking care of him. His parents adopted him, and they loved this young man. They loved him. They took care of him, even though he had a weird personality that not a lot of people would tolerate. This man, his monster. His parents took care of him, and what does he do? He murders his parents. And people will sit there and think, "Oh my God, what a poor soul. He's got a speech impediment." That stuff doesn't faze me. I see past all that stuff because even if you have a speech impediment, that does not prevent you from being a murderous, evil individual. Now, let me give you a story from my own personal life, from my own background. When I was in high school, when I was a freshman in high school, there was a young man in my classroom who was very socially awkward, and he had psychological issues, and he was very quiet, and he would do this thing with his body when he talked, when he was sitting down, he would do this thing where his back would slouch out like that, and then he would look at you and he would go, and then when he talked, he'd say, "Hi, hi. Hi. So you think everybody thought this guy is harmless. Everyone thought this guy was harmless, right? So I'm sitting there one day, not doing my work, daydreaming as I always did, and I'm sitting at my desk, and all of a sudden I hear this girl screaming. And I think to myself, this girl screams all the time. This is nothing unusual. She's a joker, so I don't really care. So I just continue on looking at my homework, staring into oblivion, and all of a sudden, I hear some more screaming, and it sounded very serious. So I turn around, only to see the socially awkward young man that everybody thought was harmless stabbing another student right here in this part of his body, stabbing him repeatedly. And a football player, someone who was in the football team, tackled him. Well, yeah, tackled him, not to the ground, but just grabbed him and restrained him. And I saw this awkward young man who people never suspected to be dangerous, speaking in a very diabolical way. He wasn't this socially awkward young man anymore. He was a very aggressive, vicious person speaking with a very vitriolic tone. He wasn't this hi anymore. And he began to say, and I'm gonna repeat what this guy said. I never forgot it. He said, I stabbed my mother in the stomach this morning. And then I stabbed 2 young boys as I walked to school. And I sat there thinking, what? Where am I right now? Am I in a crazy house? This is scary. American schools, I'm telling you, public education is freaky. It's very freaky. It's a very freaky place. It's almost like you're sending children to pre-prison. It's not, it's like, this is to prepare you for college. No, this is to prepare you for prison or the crazy house. So when I see somebody say, oh, he's got a speech impediment and he's socially awkward, that doesn't mean anything. These people can be just as evil as people without learning disabilities or speech impediments. It doesn't stop them from doing destructive acts and murderous acts. It's like, sometimes you meet people who are very socially awkward and they speak very fast, or they seem extremely enthusiastic about something. Many times those people are harmless, but sometimes you meet somebody who acts that way and they don't stop talking and they never end the conversation, even when you're giving them the polite social cues that you want to end the conversation, and they keep on going and they never stop, and they love talking about things like anime for hours. And there's something in the eyes, you can see it, you can tell that there is something unhinged about this person. Those people are dangerous, I'm telling you. There's something you can see it. And I've seen these people, a lot of times they're into like anime and they're hardcore into it. And there's a certain personality. They call them weeaboos or weebs. These are people who are like hardcore into anime. And when you talk to these types of people, you can just tell that there's something unhinged about them. Not all of them, but a lot of them. There's just something crazy and unhinged about them that if you just told them that you don't like Naruto or Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Sailor Moon or Pikachu, they would just, I don't know, try to stab you to death or something like that. I remember watching this interrogation video of this guy. His name was Kevin Davis. This guy murdered his mother. Okay, a lot of people murdering their mothers in North America. What the hell is up with that? This guy murdered his own mother by hitting her over the head with a hammer repeatedly until a hole cracked through her skull, and then he stuck his hands through her head and like played with her brains, and then he sodomized her corpse. Yes, this actually did happen. Yes, we live in a world where this happens. It's very scary, guys. People say, Ted, why don't you look at nice things? Why don't you look at, well, you know what? Nice things to me is like shopping at Target. That's a nice thing. But when I want to read about something, I want to look at reality. And that's the dark side of life. If I want to see something nice, I can go to a Target and go to their electronics section and feel a little nice inside. But there was just something unhinged about this guy, this Kevin Davis guy. Watching the interrogation, I could tell immediately this guy is a weeaboo. He's an anime guy, and that's my suspicion. It's just so sickening, guys. It's so sickening. And the other thing that I notice by people who are sick and twisted is that they love ambiguity. They love saying, I don't know to everything. I don't know. Not everything, but to certain questions. I don't remember. I don't know. I don't remember. I don't know. There was a film that I watched last week. It was called The Cure. I talked about it in one of my more recent videos. And it's a Japanese thriller / psychological horror, although I would say it was just more of a psychological film, and it's about a guy who hypnotizes people into murdering other people. And every time he's interrogated, he always responds with ambiguous answers. He always says, I don't know, I don't remember, I don't know. And it frustrates the police officers, but it also frustrates the audience. It sure as hell frustrated me. And the best scene in the whole movie is the end, when the police officer shoots this guy, and as he's dying, the officer looks down at him and says, do you remember now? Great scene, I will say. That's good writing. Anyway, you guys just heard some theology. God bless.